What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So ever since Kojima finished up with Death Stranding and then Death Stranding Director's Cut, people have been wondering what's next for him. Would he go into the world of cinema with movies and film and all this, or would he make another game? Well, in an interview, it looks like we may have had his next project just kind of leaked out there very casually, and we're going to go over that one here today. Also, we are going to be talking about a pretty serious problem that's hit Nintendo Switch Online expansion pack with that latest release. And we're also going to be talking about those PlayStation 1 games that are working into this PlayStation Plus premium tier that's rolling out in the next couple of weeks, as it looks like it's starting to show up in different regions with some pretty cool features. Guys, if you enjoyed these videos, make sure you hit that like button, helps out a ton. And if you're new here to the Spawnwave channel, make sure you subscribe down below and ring that notification bell so you can keep up to date with all of the uploads here on the channel. And we're going to start today with Sonic Frontier. It's out at the end of this year, holiday 2022, and we've seen some small bits and pieces of it, and I do have my concerns around what they're going to try to do here, but it looks like SEGA is shooting for the moon with this one. In one of their latest questions and answers with investors, we can see this quotation from Sega Sammy's CEO, Haruki Satomi, saying, "We have set internal targets as the correlation between the scores of external evaluation organizations and sales is high in Europe and North America. If the game gets a high score, it can become a must-buy game and possibly generate synergy with sales, so we are currently working hard to improve the quality of the game toward its sales for the holiday season." Okay, so for 3D Sonic games, it hasn't been the best recently. I mean, Sonic Forces, mid-50s on Metacritic. They themselves are talking about review scores. So if we look towards the highest rated 3D Sonic game, that would be Sonic Adventure 2 on the Dreamcast, coming in at an 89. Could it eclipse that? Personally, I don't think so. I mean, we haven't seen the game itself necessarily. Like I said, just small pieces of it. But if it scores, say, in the mid to high 70s on Metacritic, just overall average from all the reviews that come in, Sega could still look at that and say, hey, it's 50% higher than Sonic Forces, so it's a pretty easy way to spin it in a positive light to investors, even if it's like a mid to high 70s. I mean, Sonic does have to kind of work its way back up from Sonic Forces. Also, it's actually been a couple of months now since we had that issue pop up with the Wii and the DSi, where even if you had purchased games on your system and your console hadn't been formatted or anything, you were unable to download from Nintendo's servers those purchases you've made, maybe a Nintendo 64 game there or something on the DSi. Well, Game Explained decided to reach back out to Nintendo and just see what's going on here, because it still hasn't been fixed. And I mean, you can see their video here just saying Nintendo says nothing to announce. Again, after 2 months of the Wii shop being down for re-downloading your purchases, I think at this point, we just kind of have to take the hint. Like, Nintendo's probably annoyed that we're still asking about it. They're like, why are people still reminding us of this? Like, we've moved on. There are 10 people trying to access these re-downloads, all right? So we don't really feel like fixing them, unless we really think that these have been undergoing maintenance for 2 whole months. I think Nintendo realized there weren't a lot of people accessing them, using the servers, and it was just a pretty big cost to them. And I mean, not a lot of people have really talked much about it since that whole thing came up, and I think Nintendo just knows not many people are going to be raising this issue going forward, and they're hoping people just kind of forget about it. Makes you a little concerned, though, about the future of 3DS and Wii U re-downloads, maybe 10 years into the future. Who knows? Maybe sooner than that. Oh, and while we have to wait until sometime in 2023 for Starfield to come out after it was delayed from 2022, it appears that just random images of the game are leaking out online. For example, we can see this one being upvoted quite a bit on the subreddit for it just being, well, doors. There you go. Seriously, this is kind of where we are with this game. I think it's going to change quite a bit in June when we have the showcase, because I have to imagine they're going to show off Starfield and I guess Redfall, although most of the focus is certainly on Starfield right now, and I think a lot of that's just the potential for what we could see out of Bethesda when they take to the stars and have this big No Man's Sky-like game, and we're just thinking of Skyrim in space. But yeah, that's sort of how far we're digging for any kind of information on this game. There's a screenshot with doors being upvoted. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with Hideo Kojima's next project. At this point, we assume it's going to be a game, but who knows? Maybe he really does want to make some kind of movie or TV series for any of these subscription services that are just kind of throwing around money for like Amazon or Netflix or Apple or Paramount, but it looks like he's at least working on one game right now. There have also been reports that he's working on another title, one with Microsoft. But take a look at this. This was in an interview with Norman Reedus when he was talking with Leo. Now, Norman Reedus is the actor behind Sam Porter Bridges, the main protagonist in Death Stranding. And he talked about Death Stranding a bit in the interview and then just said, yeah, we just started the second one. It's like, wait, what? There's a second one? Apparently, according to Norman Reedus, they are now working on a follow-up to Death Stranding. And when I finished Death Stranding, I kind of looked at it as just, it's one game. I didn't think, oh, I can't wait to see what's after this one. It just seemed like a self-contained story, and I felt like it was a pretty good arc and everything. I didn't, like, in my mind, go on, okay, here, wait for the second one, it's gonna get even better. But after we got the director's cut, it did seem like Kojima had some other ideas that he wanted to throw in there, made it a bit silly, and even had the call out to something like Metal Gear Solid with that box that then got put back away. But then we see this over on Twitter where Kojima was certainly poking a bit of fun, I assume, at all of this, saying, go to your private room. My friend has the Lucille bat there and kind of sets up one of the scenes from Walking Dead and has a nice little picture with Norman Reedus there. Yes, that's obviously a nod to what was said here in the interview, but I also thought about this a bit. Hey, you know what? If I'm Kojima and I want to Kojima the internet, as in trick people into thinking, oh, I'm working on Death Stranding 2, but really I'm working on something else completely different, I would have Norman Reedus say this in an interview. In fact, people brought up different quotations that he had mentioned, something like a follow-up to Death Stranding before, and this is just another instance of him doing it. I just think it's really funny that when we had Kojima showing off Death Stranding completely, like, he was like, hey, it's a game where you deliver stuff. And like, it's your journey between point A and point B. And sure, he set up a lot of story and lore in the backgrounds and had some pretty interesting characters and the big reveal at the end for how it all came together. He was legitimately showing the game and no one believed him. But then you have Norman Reedus coming out and saying, hey, the second Death Stranding, we just started on it. And everyone's like, wow, Death Stranding 2. Again, it's interesting that people are so quick to latch onto that when it is very possible that Kojima is trying to throw people off. And I'm kind of leaning in that direction that Kojima is working on something right now with Microsoft. We hear about like the letter of intent and stuff, but the reason I would like him to do that is because he comes up with some of the craziest out there ideas that I've ever seen for a game. And him with the cloud could legitimately be terrifying, but I'm sure he'd come up with something very different for that kind of use. We've heard that at one point there was gonna be like a Silent Hills game where it would text you on your own phone. So, I mean, you plug Kojima into the cloud that can be connected at all times. Who knows what's going to happen there? But again, there are talks that there could be two projects or two different game projects he's working on right now. One with Microsoft, and then, yeah, I guess one could be Death Stranding 2, or who knows? Maybe he is really just trying to throw up the smoke screen and have some crazy, wacky reveal. Maybe at Summer Games Fest. Next up, let's talk about Nintendo Switch Online, with the latest edition being Kirby and the Crystal Shards, or as most of us refer to it, just Kirby 64. Well, it looks like there was an issue when it comes to a game-breaking bug in the game, and it was spotted. We could see this over on Reddit. Kirby 64 has a game-breaking bug in underwater levels on Nintendo Switch Online. Getting hit by different damage sources underwater causes you to enter hit stun forever, and you need to quit the level to fix it. I don't remember this happening on original hardware, and has been brought up many times now since this was found on the Nintendo Switch Online application, that it does not happen in the original version, so this is a product of the emulation that they are using here. But what's interesting is, if we look at Oatmeal Dome here, and they will look through some of the different updates through data mining, they say that Kirby 64 was added. This is for version 2.3.0 for that Nintendo 64 application. Star Fox 64 had gamma adjustment enabled. Gamma value was set to 1.8. Dr. Mario 64 had render settings adjusted. Mario Golf had render settings adjusted. And they say Kirby 64 appears to have the least amount of patches and hacks that I've seen so far for this emulator. There are the usual render settings adjustments present, but there are no CPU instruction patches or hooks. And this isn't the first time we've seen issues issues with these additions to the N64 collection through emulation. We had the whole thing with like fog, for example, in most of the games in Mario Kart and in Ocarina of Time. And we also had other game-breaking glitches that were going on with like Paper Mario. But we did see Nintendo actually work some of these out, and there were even talks that Dr. Mario had like its transitions fixed recently, although it looks like Yoshi's Story still has its glitch that they need to work out. So the point of this really is bringing this up, making sure Nintendo knows about it, because they've been pretty proactive about updating these games as issues are found. And this is certainly one they'd want to get worked out here pretty quickly, considering Kirby is actually very popular now more than ever, with Kirby and the Forgotten Land exploding out of the gate with sales. And of course, the Switch generation has attracted a bunch of new gamers into Nintendo's ecosystem, and going back to probably a game that most have not played, especially the younger generation that are coming in, and then you run into this glitch and kind of just ruins the game for you. That's pretty frustrating. So I'm thinking Nintendo will look into this and fix it, as it's at least what they have been doing since the release of it. It's just strange that seemingly most of the games that show up in the Nintendo 64 collection have issues. Nintendo, of course, then goes back and patches them and works on them. And Kirby in particular apparently had the least amount of work done to it right out of the gate, so we'll see how long it takes Nintendo to fix this one. Next up, let's talk about those PlayStation 1 games that are going to start showing up as part of this PlayStation Plus premium tier. That's going to be alongside of PS2 games that are going to be basically remastered into PS4 titles and PlayStation 3 streaming. Well, they've started to appear on different PlayStation networks around the world, specifically in Asia, and it looks like we have a couple to check out, as well as screenshots and some features that we can now expect. For example, we do have Oddworld Abe's Odyssey, this coming from Reset Era, who compiled a lot of this information. So I'll have it linked down below in the sources if you want to go through and check out some of these screenshots for yourself. Worms Armageddon, and then also Worms World Party. Now, if we look at through some of the screenshots here, we can see how they've kind of broken up Start and Select as part of that middle touchpad there. They also have Rewind, Load and Save settings, but Rewind being just one of the menu options that you have. We can also see the presets here when it comes to the visual style. So you have like Default, Retro Classic, and Modern. That way it can kind of emulate the look of a CRT TV. We also have the aspect ratio where you can go with native resolution, or you go to a 1x1, 4x3 for 1610 or 16:9, square pixels, wide zoom stretch. It's also mentioned that trophies are optional. So it is going to kind of be that thing where we look and say, okay, are there trophies ticked here? Yes. All right, great. We can kind of look at the list and see what we have to do to get that platinum. And then they do mention that saves can be uploaded to the cloud, which it seems like that would be expected, but it is nice to see that it is noted here. However, one of the biggest things I saw listed here has to do with pricing for all these different games. Because remember, you don't have to just be part of the subscription service in order to play these games. If you see a PS1 game pop up that you want, you can just buy it and add it to your library. And the pricing appears, at least at this time with the launch games, to be anywhere between $5 and $7. And that's not bad. Like, so if you see one that's like $5.99 and you're like, oh, you know what, I would like Abe's Odyssey, you just buy it, add it to your library, and move on. So I am curious, though, if we start getting more third parties tangled up in this and they're like, no, we need more than $7 for, say, Mega Man Legends, are we going to end up with $10, $12, $15 PS1 games? That's the part that remains to be seen here. But I mean, I gotta say, $5, $6, $7, and you can just pick up a game you want. And I mean, that's not bad, and that's something I am glad that Sony is choosing to do, because if it was like Nintendo's where you can't buy the 64 games, that'd be pretty frustrating. But hey, from what I'm seeing, it looks pretty good. I'm just really interested to see how the emulation ends up working when I check it out, I guess sometime later in June. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about more of those big video game company acquisitions. This one, I would say we could look at as being game-changing, something that would definitely change the gaming landscape. But let's head over here. This was posted up by Kotaku, citing Puck with a new report around EA actually seeking either a sale or a merger. They say the Battlefield and FIFA maker recently pursued a merger with NBC Universal and also held potential acquisition talks with Disney, Apple, and other companies. Now, the other companies reportedly would be like companies like Amazon. So there were some pretty big entities here taking a look into EA. This, again, from Puck, saying in recent years, as media companies have taken greater interest in the rapidly growing gaming industry, Wilson and Electronic Arts have held talks with a number of different potential suitors, Disney, Apple, and Amazon. Sources with knowledge of those talks told me. Several sources familiar with these talks say EA has been persistent in pursuing a sale and has only grown more emboldened in the wake of the Microsoft Activision deal. Others say that EA is primarily interested in a merger arrangement that would allow Wilson to remain as chief executive of the combined company. Basically, EA is looking to get paid, especially, as they mentioned, after the Microsoft Activision deal, and they see that kind of number, almost $70 billion, even if in their mind they're worth at least half of that. I mean, that's pretty good. I don't think EA is worth what Activision went for, mostly because I look at their intellectual properties right now and I see things like Battlefield that, I mean, Battlefield's just been getting beaten down after all these releases they've been doing. It's just, the latest one really hurt that franchise, I would say. But then you look at some of their popular game series, it's all tied into things like the NFL, and it was FIFA until that falling out. Now they're going to try to do their own soccer football game, and they have to spend some time building up their current franchises once again, like Dragon Age and Mass Effect, I think, before they can get anywhere close to what Activision Blizzard was worth. But still, if they can get paid out and Andrew Wilson can still basically run the show, like in their mind, it's like, why not? Now, I will admit, when you see names like Disney, Amazon, and Apple in there, you're wondering, wow, that could really change some stuff, considering you buy EA and I don't know, maybe you really do want to get into the game streaming or your own console even at that point. But some of these companies could have legitimately just called EA after hearing that NBC Universal was getting close to striking a deal, and they could have said, how much is it worth? What would it take for us to pick you up? And then EA throws them a number and then they hang up on her. They're like, no, we're good for now. So while it sounds serious for some of those other companies, it appears that NBC Universal was the one that was at least leading the pack until I guess they hit a speed bump or something there. But nonetheless, this information tells us that, yeah, EA is looking around. So if we do have something pop up on a Monday or Tuesday, just a press release goes out and it says EA has come to an agreement with this company to merge or sell, don't be too surprised. And before we go to the comment of the day, we're going to take a look at the poll they posted up yesterday, where I asked, do you think Kojima is working on a Death Stranding 2? 53% said yes, he's going to continue the series. 47% said no, he's working on a new game. I'm going to split down the middle there. I still think he's trolling the internet with Norman Reedus' help. But I guess if he wants to work on a sequel to Death Stranding, I would just be curious to see how he would maybe evolve the gameplay and where he'd take the story. I wouldn't be opposed to it because I was fine with Death Stranding and the story. And yeah, even the gameplay at times, I know it was controversial for all of that. But it was, for me, it was an alright game. It wasn't like this crazy, like incredible thing, but it also wasn't the worst game ever. So either way, I'm going to be paying attention here because I need to see what Kojima's next wacky idea is, because there's one thing I'll give him credit for. He certainly comes up with some of the most unique games in the industry. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day as we're seeing here. This is from Locke saying, I hope we get the original Metal Gear Solid for PS5. It'll be nice to go back through that game and get trophies for it now, since MGS2 and MGS3 were given trophy support on the HD collection, and MGS is the last game to not have that. You know, I was thinking about something recently because we were trying to get Click to play through the Metal Gear Solid series, and we were trying to figure out how she would play the first one, and it came down to like, okay, do you just have to buy the PlayStation Classic to play it? And I'm like, then you got to use that controller, and I mean, it really did come down to just emulate it on your PC. As unfortunate as that is, it's just Konami hasn't given easy access to it. You get a PS3 and play the original disc, I guess, or a PS1 or PS2, but at this point, I hope within the next year, we just have Metal Gear Solid 1, 2, 3, and I guess 4 through streaming on this service. Like, make it so it's easy to get through some of these classic games, especially, I mean, Metal Gear Solid 3. You gotta get it on there. PS4 remaster style, that'd be pretty cool. And ladies and gentlemen, that's gonna do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. Where's Death Stranding 2? Would you like to see a sequel to Death Stranding, or do you want to see Kojima go off and do some other weird thing? Let me know about that. And then also, what about Kirby 64 having this pretty serious bug? And then the PlayStation 1 games that are popping up. How do you feel about the pricing and the features? Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.